comes to the Continental, I'm going to be completely honest, I found it to be okay, but it wasn't anything special or outlandish. Speaking on the positives, I thought the choreography was very amazing to watch, but especially in the third episode, seeing all these fight scenes happening at the same time, really being very unique and different from one another, very eye-capturing. Then when it comes to the action scenes in this program, I would have to say there's not as much as I was expecting, especially in the first two episodes, but the ones we got definitely were a beauty to watch, being very creative in some cases and just being very eye-capturing, just like the choreography. Now when it comes to characters, I was very much enthralled in learning about Winston's past and his rough childhood, and it's interesting to see the journey he went from his childhood all the way up to this show onto the John Wick franchise. And then when it comes to antagonists, I'd say some of them were disturbingly interesting to follow, specifically the Hansel and Gretel twins, who whilst never spoke, they definitely showed they are force to be reckoned with. For a 3-part series, I have to admit I was quite amazed to see the development of characters that aren't even connected to the John Wick franchise, really giving them a lot of character development and nuance to the same degree they give new characters in each and every one of the John Wick films. And lastly, I'd say they did a really great job of capturing the 1970s New York scene, not only with location, with the style and cars, but also the soundtrack itself really added to that element. Those are my positives. Sadly, I do have quite a few negatives. Firstly, I felt like these episodes, they were over an hour each, and personally speaking, I think it was very unnecessary for these episodes to be that long, except the last episode that made sense. Now, personally speaking, I think the secondary plots were unnecessary or just didn't add anything to the show at all. For example, I thought Lou's subplot of finding out her dad's true history was something very unnecessary to the program, as unless the show continues, there's no real need for this to be in the actual show itself, personally speaking. And then moving on to the female detective story, that being KD, I felt hers was a bit bland and it took way too long to connect to the main plot of the show, and personally speaking, when it did, it wasn't that particularly interesting and just stole time off of Winston's plot and even stealing his arc to an extent, at least in my eyes. One of the main things that bothered me during the final episode was how we would see characters come in just at the right moment when another particular character was in danger or was about to be killed off. And I just think, one, it feels very unrealistic, and it also takes away the threat the antagonist initially proposes. For a show about assassins, I have to be honest, I found it quite unrealistic to see a group of people who I wouldn't say are the most trained assassins were able to kill off the majority of people in that actual hotel. And out of Winston's entire crew, only one member dies, but not before talking to him, which I personally felt was quite odd, especially how he died, as I thought he would have been dead on impact with his injuries. Overall, I thought the idea of this show is very interesting. I think it's kind of nice to see them venture out and explore the Continental and Winston backstory, really going deep into the John Wick franchise. But I felt the writers were adding unnecessary or pointless subplots to keep the audience interested, which I personally think fell flat, and they should have just kept what was the main strong point, I mean Winston's plot, the main idea. Is this show good? I would personally say it's okay. Rating wise, I would say it's a 6 out of 10. Would I rewatch this? I'm going to be honest and say no. I think this show has a lot of cool fight scenes that I could definitely see myself going back to, but I would not watch this show as a whole again. When it comes to recommendations, of course I'd start off with John Wick, the film franchise itself, as it is far superior. Next, I would say, due to the fact it's a TV show about heisting in a sense, because they're going into the Continental, I would recommend the TV show Kaleidoscope, which it was very action-packed and also had a deep, heartfelt meaning behind the show as well. Because of the fact it is very over-the-top violent, I would definitely recommend the TV show Banshee, which also features a lot of crime syndicate and assassins throughout as well. Because this show is about going into quite a dangerous area filled with assassins and killers, I'd recommend the film Dread, as we see him going into a quite similar situation with deadly characters all to take out one particular person. Lastly, if you enjoy action scenes that go to a ridiculous notion, I recommend Hard Boiled, a great John Wick film, really action-packed and over-the-top but really cool shootouts to look at and great amount of visual violence. Definitely check those out. Those are my recommendations. This has been my review for the Continental. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe, but most importantly, thank you and have a nice day.